people, welcome back to Propagandist. So, ladies and gentlemen, last time around we officially finished our reactions to Volume 3 itself of RWBY. And now, of course, as promised, basically, I'm going to take an episode before we, go over to Volume 4 and all that, to actually just have a look at this Volume 3 DVD copy of mine, and basically just have a look at some of the supplementary material on it. Now, I don't know if there's necessarily anything quite as substantive as there was on, I think it was either the Volume 1 or Volume 2 DVD copy that I had, because one of those, I forget which one it was, technically had all those, production diaries from back in the day. I think it was Volume 2, wasn't it? We watched it at the end of them. But yeah, obviously we've watched 4 more World of Remnant videos, World of Remnant videos even, during this series, during Volume 3, so we don't need to obviously cover those, we've already done them. And of course there will be more World of Remnant, I think, once we get into Volume 4 as well, so I'll watch those, the outstanding ones that we have yet to watch at some point. In the meantime though, what is actually on this Volume 3 DVD copy that I have? And I've already mentioned a couple of things before. I've mentioned that there's some trailers, there's one for RWBY Grimmer Clip, so we may have a look at that in due course. I mean, not that it's really going to add all that much, because I've been saying for some time that I want to play RWBY Grimmer Clips, probably over on my Strategist channel at some point. Just need to see if I can get a couple of friends of mine, maybe Connor, maybe Phil, if he eventually gets back on Steam and all that, see if I can get them involved in that game, and then we could have a big at least 3-player co-op and all that. Who knows? I've got ideas, plans. So yeah, there's a trailer for RWBY Grimmer Clips on this Volume 3 DVD copy. We'll have a look at that, but probably not till towards the end, because the main things I want to look at, there's a couple of things on the same sort of sub-menu on the DVD copy where the 4 World of Remnant episodes that we watched this volume, where they're located. There's 2 other things, one called Legacy of RWBY and another one called RWBY Photos. So they'll be, I think, the main 2 things that we look at in this one. And apart from the RWBY Grimmer Clips trailer, there's also listed under that trailer section, there's also Laser Time and Crunch Time, which I forget what they were. I think people in the comments on previous episodes did actually mention what they might be, but we may take a look at those in due course as well as the Grimmer Clips trailer, just for the hell of it, to see what's actually on there. I don't know if they're necessarily RWBY specific, or if they're related to other Rooster Teeth IPs like Red vs Blue or anything like that. They may be, or they may be related to something else entirely. Who knows? Now, but yeah, so Legacy of RWBY and the RWBY Photos, though, those are the main things, really, that are going to be the focal point of this particular episode. So, I'm sure there'll be something very interesting that comes out of those. Now, I don't know how long these additions and additional things actually are. I imagine the trailers probably will only be short, but the Legacy of RWBY thing could be a more substantive video. So, we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. And the RWBY Photos, we'll see, that also might be something a bit longer, I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea what to expect, basically, because I remember when I did the reaction to the production diaries at the end of Volume 2, I think it was, and, they were a lot longer than I anticipated. They ended up actually taking up about something like a 30-minute, 40-minute video, somewhere around there, which was pretty good, though. There's plenty to actually see and do out of those. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to these ones, to see what they actually are. Now, I'm going to mention the lighting. It is grey and cloudy here in the UK as when I record this, and it is raining. So the lighting seems to be, it's fluctuating a bit, but it seems fairly stable at the moment, but hopefully we won't have a repeat of what happened a couple of episodes ago, where the sun was shining so brightly through my window that it just completely meant that I was invisible, effectively. Hopefully that won't happen, but yeah, I can always do my trick where I shut the blinds and put my room light on if need be, to see if that corrects it. But with any luck, this shouldn't be too bad here and all that. There was something else I was going to mention as well, and it's just completely gone from my head. I think it was actually to do with Volume 4, now that I think about it. Yeah, so it basically, obviously, we will get to Volume 4 in a little while. Now, we've got this supplementary episode that I'll do first. Then I'm thinking I'm going to just do a check before I start reacting to Volume 4 itself. In terms of, I might just check if there's anything I want to watch before I do that, any trailers for Volume 4 itself, because I know there was, back in the day, there was a Ruby Rose character short that was released in advance of Volume 4. Now, I remember that only being quite a short video, but it would be worth probably, doing a retrospective on that as well as part of this series, just for the hell of it, just so it's included. And as well as that, I'm also just going to check, probably back over previous episodes in this series, just to see people's recommendations for things to react to in case there's anything in lists that people have already left saying, I don't know, if there's basically anything there that might be worth watching before we get into Volume 4 and all that. So I'm not guaranteeing necessarily I will spend several episodes at this point just before we get to Volume 4 reacting to other stuff, but I'm just going to check nonetheless, just in case there's the odd thing that might be worth having a look at before then. Now, one other quick notice as I want to record this, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 1st of February, so the January blues are over. Everyone gets those, of course, after Christmas and all that. You go back to work, back to school or whatever in January, and January sometimes can feel like a bit of a boring month because of the fact that, there's not a lot going on in it, unless you have a January birthday or anything like that, in which case you have got something to look forward to in that month. But now we're in February and all that. As of when this video goes out, it'll probably be sort of getting towards later into February and all that, because obviously, I've got a couple of episodes pre-recorded in advance and all that. But as of when I do record this, technically my internet is still down here in my apartment. Fortunately, a technician is meant to be coming tomorrow to actually try and fix my router issues and all that. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping that resolves it and then I get back online. What it does mean is that as of when I record this, 1st of February, the RWBY episode that normally would be going out this evening obviously is going to be delayed slightly. Now, I have posted an announcement on the Propagandist channel to let people know about that, so please do bear with me. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, what happened was a few days ago from when I record this, I got back from work one afternoon and I noticed that my internet was just completely down at home. So I checked the router and I noticed that the router seemed to be completely non-responsive. It didn't seem to be working at all, because the model of router that it is, it has like a row of lights on it, and if your internet is functional, then basically all of those lights should be on and they shouldn't be blinking or anything. They should just be a nice steady glow. But I came back from work, looked at it and found that all those lights were basically completely off. None of them were working, even though the router was switched on at the plug and all that. So I did the usual fixes. I tried because the router itself has a little button, an on and off button that you press. So I tried pressing that pressing that off and then back on again. No response. And it was weird. And no matter what I did for basic fixes, I just couldn't get the internet working again. So I waited to see if maybe, the next morning would it come back in, come back online, because sometimes in your local area, your ISP, they may be doing technical works on the cables or whatever, the exchange, something like that. But no, so the next morning it still wasn't back. So I went to work as usual, then got back in the evening and basically was on hold for about 30 minutes on my phone to the tech support line, for eventually getting through. And the guy, to his credit, was really helpful, ran me through some steps to test the router to see what else was wrong with it. And what we think it is, we think that there's a problem with the plug that is attached to the router that plugs into the electrical outlet. Basically, that plug is a specific model that has like a little light on it, and normally, apparently, that's just supposed to be a constant glow from that light on that plug. But I was looking at it as I was on call to him, and he said to me, "Is it blinking?" And I said, "Yes, it looks like it is," because it was blinking slightly. And so basically what we're looking at in terms of what we think the problem is that we think there might be a problem with the plug, the power supply to the router, in which case the technician who's coming tomorrow is supposed to be delivering a new plug, and he's going to test it to see, is that basically what the issue is. So like I say, I hope that is what the issue is, and I hope that putting a new plug into it basically fixes the issue, because if it doesn't, that means that there's an even deeper problem with the router, and then that probably means my internet's going to be down for another few days, whilst the tech support and then the technician basically has to go and probably get a new router or something, which would be joy if it happens. But hopefully, like I say, fingers crossed, hopefully that's not what the problem is. Now, I wasn't anticipating to go on a whole couple of minutes tangent there about my router issues, but that just explains basically why, one of the more recent episodes of my RWBY reaction series has been slightly delayed, ladies and gentlemen. So, that's basically what's happening. But like I say, I posted a announcement on the community tab explaining this as well, so it's not that I've left you guys completely in the dark and all that. So yeah, there's your explanation, ladies and gentlemen. Right, I think that's probably enough by way of a whole intro preamble to this episode. It's been about 10 minutes. Let's actually get to the stuff that we're here to react to, because, for all I know, this Legacy of RWBY thing could be very, very long. So let's get to that, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on the extras menu of my DVD copy of RWBY Volume 3. Let's just put the volume to the max there. Right, Legacy of RWBY, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, it's only 9 minutes.
In a Rooster Teeth studio, not too far away from this one. We were wrapping up Red vs. Blue Season 10, and Monty came in, letting people know that he had had this crazy cool dream the night before.
He came in, late, but just because he was there overnight. And he was still kind of like half awake, and he just walked up to me. He said, red, white, black, yellow. And I said, yes, Monty, those are 4 colors. And he said, no, that's a team. They're 4 girls. And I said, yes, Monty, go back to sleep. And then the next day, he was like, hey, we should make an anime. And I was like, yes, that sounds great. I like anime. You like anime. Let's make a show.
I don't think any of us were expecting this. I don't think any of us even necessarily, for lack of a word, wanted this. We didn't we just kind of wanted to make this little thing that we could do.
This was not our goal. Our goal was
No.
to make a cool show that we
Maybe we
would
do it
want to watch.
for a couple years if it's popular.
Yeah, we didn't realize it was going to turn into.
Always like, when you see sort of behind the scenes footage, right? And you always see people doing this kind of thing where it's just like weird shots of people doing strange things on tables or whatever. Lying down on tables, walking on tables. I think this is all obviously put on for the camera and all that, but yeah, it's humour, ladies and gentlemen. But no, that's interesting, that seems to be kind of the genesis of RWBY in terms of, Monty Ohm just one day decided, oh, let's make an anime. I mean, to be honest, there's probably a bit more to it than that. He probably had, I would imagine, much more cooking up in his head in terms of ideas for, what this anime would be and that kind of thing. But yeah, 3, 2, 1, go.
Maybe we do it
You want VLC?
years if it's popular
Yeah,
enough.
we didn't realize it was going to turn into like the next mainstay for Rooster Teeth. Yeah, we didn't realize that at the time at all.
It was scary.
Oh,
it was
God,
it was horrifying.
The scariest moment I had at the first RTX that we showed
Ooh.
RWBY, there was 5 seconds between the episode ending and people applying. And there's this really, really long
So can we just go
pause.
back there? Is that a Yang Xiaolong cosplayer? Oh yeah, sort of. Is she cosplaying Yang Xiaolong? She's got to be, right? She's got the blonde hair. Yeah, I mean, that's something that would be really interesting actually to do a video on, RWBY cosplays, because I imagine there are some really good ones out there. People have probably, put a lot of effort into RWBY cosplays and all that. So this is interesting because, I mentioned a moment ago how at the time, obviously, when they made this, they had no idea that RWBY would go as big as it did, and that it would effectively become quite sort of one of Rooster Teeth's main IPs or franchises, to put it that way. It's interesting because I guess that's true, of course. I think of any artist producing any sort of media or work. You don't know at the time when you produce it what the reaction of your intended audience is going to be to that media that you've just created, and I mean, that's part of the fun of it, really. And it's interesting, how certain things do become very, very popular, whilst other ones sometimes just languish in obscurity. They have their heyday and then everyone just sort of forgets about them. But, I would say RWBY probably there's probably a reason why it had, more staying power, to put it that way, I think, than maybe they anticipated at the time. I mean, as a story, I feel like stories where you have a sort of an ensemble of interesting, very likeable characters set in a school environment, I think that I don't know, I always feel like stories like that always tend to have a good chance of becoming popular. Not that they always do, but it makes me think, for example, of a franchise like Harry Potter, for instance. Because, I mean, I've talked about Harry Potter before, haven't I, in this retrospective non-blind Let's Watch How. I mean, I think what I remember saying about Harry Potter back early on in this retrospective Let's Watch was that I always felt like Beacon was basically the much cooler version of Hogwarts, kind of. And, you know, between the two of them, because they both have similarities in terms of, you know, you have a cast of young, likeable characters at what is basically a school that has a certain specialty. Obviously, in Hogwarts' case, it's magic. In Beacon's case, it's training huntsmen and huntresses to deal with monsters. And something about that, I think, really appeals to a lot of people, because I think, obviously, you know, if you're younger and you're still at school, you can sort of relate in that, obviously, a lot of the scenarios that your characters in the story are facing are obviously they're the kind of things that people who are actually at school can relate to and thus deal with, you know, with crazy and kooky teachers, or, you know, keeping up with classes and stuff like that, whilst also balancing that against the demands of things going on outside school. So on one level there's that, and the fact that usually, you know, your protagonists are young and therefore they're of an age range that's quite similar to a good chunk of your audience, and so therefore there's that relatability factor. There's also, I think, for older audiences as well, so people probably who are in sort of their 20s, people in my sort of age bracket who are in the 30s, and even people who perhaps are older as well. There's also an appeal in terms of kind of that nostalgia factor. Not well, would you call it nostalgia factor? I mean that's the closest word I can think to right now, but essentially what I mean is that kind of vibe of, you know, when you're sort of older and you look back on your school years, and you do look, you know, most people look back on their school years, not everyone, but most people, I would say, if I had to take a guess, and say, you know, oh, there's definitely things I miss about my school years, you know, when I was just a kid, and, you know, I didn't really have to worry too much about responsibilities, about the world, and so, you know, there's that factor. And then I think there's just good old escapism as well. You know, there's the more fantastical elements of the story. So, like, you know, in Hogwarts' case, all the magic, the fact that it's a magic school, or in Ruby's case, the fact that it's a school with, you know, really cool students with really cool weapons fighting monsters and all that. So there's the escapism, the fantasy aspect as well, the escapism from real life. So I think there's that combination of things that sometimes make stories about, you know, a bunch of likeable young protagonists at a school environment where there's something kooky and fascinating going on, that makes those kind of stories have possibly more staying power, I would say, than other types of media. I mean, I like I say, I don't think it works in every case, but like, just given the fact that you have things like Hogwarts and then you have things like Beacon, and, you know, two franchises there, RWBY and Harry Potter, which have that kind of similar premise, and yet, you know, both of those were quite popular, I think is kind of a testament to how that really can be quite good. And I think the other actual example of that phenomenon is a book that I remember reading when I was a teenager, and I'm sure other people have read it as well, Ender's Game, because that's actually quite similar, isn't it, come to think of it. I mean, I don't know if Ender's Game actually is as popular, I don't know, maybe it is. I don't know if it's as popular as things like Harry Potter or RWBY, but certainly Ender's Game, I think, was fairly well known in sci-fi circles. If you've never read it, Ender's Game was a story, it was a sci-fi, it was a novel by Orson Scott Card, I think it was, who he's an interesting author from everything I've heard about him. And when I say interesting, I mean a little bit controversial, because he's a guy who wrote a really interesting story, but is someone who I know there's controversy around him because of his views on LGBT people, I think. Which we're not going to get into, but yeah, I mean, his views are not cool and all that. But basically, Ender's Game. Sorry, I'm going off on a massive fucking tangent here that I wasn't expecting. But Ender's Game as a story is about a kid, Ender. I think he's called Andrew Wiggin, or Ender Wiggin, as his nickname is, who is taken into like a training academy by sort of like a space fleet or something like that, because Earth is apparently sort of like at war with an alien species, and essentially, you know, he's taken to this kind of academy where he and a load of other sort of like 12, 13 teenage kids basically is being trained in how to fight the aliens. So it's got that same premise of, you know, kids, young people at a zany, crazy sort of school environment where something weird's happening on. So it's got that element, and, you know, it's got the usual sort of elements of kind of like a school slice of life thing, as well as its more fantastical escapism. It's got those elements of sort of school slice of life in terms of, you know, Enderwiggin encountering kooky, weird teachers, or, you know, other students who he either forms friendships with, others who become his rivals, things like that. So it's got all those kind of elements to it. So yeah, that's another example, I would say. Right, yeah, I wasn't anticipating to go down that rabbit hole after basically talking about cosplay, but yeah, to go back to the original point, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I would actually be interested in doing a video about RWBY cosplays and all that. Maybe just like checking out people's cosplays and all that. That'd be fascinating, that would. I think that'd be really interesting. Because I've done a similar video to that here on the channel, I think, way back. There was Girls and Panzer cosplays, and there were some really good ones for there. But I imagine RWBY, there's some real standout cosplays that people have done over time. So, who knows? Maybe a suggestion for a video to do. I hope my webcam's not slipped, by the way. The camera angle's not just gone all over the place. I hope not. I may just take a very quick check to make sure it's all okay. 1 second, everybody. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in. Yeah. No, I was just checking because I couldn't tell if my webcam had slipped slightly. If it had done, that would have been annoying, but no, it hasn't. We're fine. All right, let's resume in 3, 2, 1, go.
Episode ending, and people apply. And there's this really, really long pause, or it felt a lot longer than 5 seconds, of, okay, are they going to applaud? Are they going to boo? Like, what did this meet their expectations after seeing the first episode? And they stood up and cheered.
There was all this trepidation.
You got a standing ovation, man.
Had never gone for a show like this, and we didn't know if the audience was really there. It was just incredibly exciting to see that the fans were already reacting to these designs and Monty's animation, and the Rooster Teeth community was just...
Oh, speaking of cosplays, there you go.
Showing up.
There's some good ones there.
Actually debuted online, really put to rest a lot of the fears that we kind of been grappling with behind the scenes.
Volume 1 of RWBY was very much us just trying to figure out what to do.
Everybody wore at least 2 to 3 hats. You had editors who were also compers, who, you know, some of whom were also one of the writers on the show. You had animators that were also running the pipeline and helping on the tech side of things.
We would put on the suit, and then we would go do the mocap for every character, and then bring that into our scene.
Oh boy.
As we needed, set up the camera, do
Well, that's
everything.
Cinder and Mercury and Emerald, isn't it?
And having to creatively patch all sorts of new problems that we could only guess at, but couldn't foresee until we were actually in the heat of production.
And for Volume 2, we really tried to step up and improve on the animation and spend a little bit more time with effects.
I'll say they definitely succeeded there.
We really hit our stride.
Going into Volume 3,
for the most part, yeah.
We were really able to set up the pipeline how we had always wanted to do it for years and years. And we were able to split out the responsibility of camera and layout off the shoulders of the animators and have our own camera and layout department. So we've got a bunch of stars now.
Let's take a pause. So at this point, yeah, their team is getting bigger and bigger in terms of the production staff and all that. Yeah, because I'm not surprised that in Volumes 1 and 2, by the sound of it, basically, you know, obviously it being a small team, everyone was having to take on multiple responsibilities for different things, which I imagine, you know, that's quite intense. That's quite an intense working environment, I would probably guess, because obviously now you've got, you know, a lot of different responsibilities on your shoulders, and therefore you've got a lot to work with, and, you know, the potential for individual staff members to become quite overheated is probably quite, you know, a lot greater. But it's good to know that obviously by Volume 3, their production team, by the sound of it, was expanding, meaning that certain responsibilities could be devolved elsewhere to ease the load on the shoulders of certain individuals. Interesting, yeah. But it's just, you know, it's just how things grew, in essence. 3, 2, 1, go.
For taking all the motion capture data, applying that to the characters, and putting together the scene files so that when an animator is assigned a scene, they get not only the animatic from editorial, which has the storyboards and the timing of the dialogue, but they also then get from our layout team an animation file that has a working version of the sets and all the right characters already in their starting positions, and the motion capture data is already applied to it, so the animators can just spend their time focusing on character performance. We have talented teams of folks that are doing nothing but audio design. They don't have to worry about the edit. The editors also strictly focus on the edit of the episodes. They edit the animatics, they do the final edits of the chapters. They also have to do all the promo and marketing material, like the next time ons that we do. And we've got a dedicated comp team for the very first time that we brought online with RWBY 13 this year, and then we rolled straight on to RWBY 3, where they can just deal with lighting and visual effects all day long, and they don't have to also worry about
little BB-8
and sound design and so forth. So that's been great. I'm most proud of.
I love the wall scrolls, by the way, that they've got hanging up in the background. If you saw those, yeah, there's one here that's a Yang Shao Long. There's another one over there that's Weiss. I think there was a better angle on that a moment ago. Not there. Where was it? Oh, there. Sort of. Yeah. Yeah. I love the wall scrolls. Very nice. You know, I've always, well, I say I've always. Have I mentioned before how, you know, I wish I'd known of some of the RWBY merchandise and things back in the day, because I would have loved to get my hands on it. I mean, you probably still can get your hands on bits of RWBY merchandise, you know, like, say, posters and wall scrolls, that kind of thing. Because I know it's just a shame, because Rooster Teeth's website, before it shut down, obviously had the Rooster Teeth store and used to be able to get a lot of stuff over there, and I should have taken the opportunity to do so while it was up. But, I mean, I'm sure, you know, there's still bits of RWBY merchandise going on places like Amazon or whatever. We'll just have to have a look someday. But yeah, 3, 2, 1, resume.
And sound design and so forth. So that's been great. I'm most proud of just how everybody bands together. It's not an understatement to say that we're one big family or tribe, but the way everybody communicates and works together, and you know, to a person, just cares so much about the story that we want to tell, and it absolutely shows.
It's just really cool to see how big the team has gotten over the past season, and just how everyone is still working together and like working as a team to kind of get everything to work. It's just amazing.
You don't hear people complain saying, oh my gosh, I hate animating, or oh my gosh, I hate comping, or XYZ. Everybody loves what they do, so it makes everything run a lot smoother.
No matter how small the shot is, or how on the overall scale, it's not that important to everybody. Like, no matter what it is, it's very important, and they'll do everything they can to get it right.
We want to make it the best it can be. You know, there's always, like you said, time limitations or whatever, but there's never a time where like, maybe that's okay.
Given what we pull off as a team and the time we pull it off in, it's insane. Especially the episodes 10, 11, and 12, the final ones where it's just pure chaos. The fact that we can bring all those elements together, they work together, and it doesn't just turn into a giant mess is literally mind-boggling.
Sorry, I'm pausing a lot in this, but I think there's a good point there as well. Like, that whole sequence, yeah, in the final episodes of Volume 3, where you have shots where you have numerous characters on screen, or, you know, you have like the camera sort of panning round very quickly to different angles, where there's other characters standing here and there's characters standing there, and, you know, they're not just standing around, they're in motion, so they're firing their weapons, they're attacking enemies, they're doing whatever it is they're doing. They've got sort of, you know, they're firing off projectiles, so then you've got to animate the projectiles, what they look like moving through the air, and the impacts that they have. Yeah, I can imagine how much work that actually is. Indeed. And I can probably also really, I'd say, you know, I can probably also foresee how it will be very easy when you're producing a scene, you know, shots like this, for tiny little details to slip the net, so to speak. You know, little bits of animation ropiness here and there or whatever. It would be so easy to miss things because you're so focused, for example, on making sure, say, you like this shot here, that you get Ironwood's pose and the practical effects of where he's shooting the robots. It'd be so easy to get focused on those things and getting them right that you could very easily end up missing something else in the background. Say like a little detail, maybe like a texture on a surface somewhere isn't quite right or whatever. Yeah, that you know, you can understand why sometimes tiny little details might slip the net. But, you know, given that overall in Volume 3, there's only really, I think, one sort of aspect of animation weirdness that I think I remember picking up on. I think that was obviously Ruby and Mercury in the passage in Amity Coliseum, where the sort of positioning of them was a bit odd between camera shots. But other than that, like, was there anything else that I picked up on? Not really. Nothing major anyway that I recall. And if there was anything else, well, it must have been so minor, hence why I'm not remembering it right now. So, yeah, just thought it was interesting. 3, 2, 1, resume.
Giant mess is literally mind-boggling.
It is a testament to the team and, you know, how well we work together, that each episode that we do make is seemingly, and a lot of people I think agree, better than the previous one. So each episode just kind of builds in terms of quality, in terms of production value. So it's good to be a part of that and see the growth from the start of the season to where we're at currently.
I think my favorite part about Volume 3 so far, just working on it week to week, is that every single episode we get to, as we're exporting it, we just kind of all look around each other and go, yeah, this is the best thing. This is the best episode this season. We'll feel really good about it. We'll feel really proud about it. And then the next episode comes up and we go, no, this is the best one ever. You know, we really, I don't think that's us being arrogant or anything. I think that's just being really proud of our work and being really happy with, you know, how we're evolving as a team, even in the middle of the season. I think, like, this season has grown internally more than any of the other seasons have.
I mean, you put heart and soul into it, right?
To it, just starting with the preview and the first episode that we put out, just all.
You can see how you'd be proud of what you've produced.
We're able to successfully still maintain the look and feel of the show, and that this is still the right world despite all the challenges that went down this year. I don't know if we would have Rooster Teeth Animation in its current form as early as we've been able to start this department if it hadn't been for Monty. It was his love of detail and his momentum that just continued.
I just deadpan watched a scene of what I assume was Monty kicking a chair into a guy.
People ask, like, how do you get into, like, entertainment? How do you break into, you know, this online world of creativity and art?
Which is probably the hardest question in the world to answer.
Yeah. But the answer we always try to give, and the best one we can, is you just gotta do something. You just gotta one day decide that you're gonna do it. Monty fucking did it.
You know, one of the biggest questions internally was, like, how are we going to...
Oh, why play this music right now?
You know, without him. Like,
when you're talking about Monty.
Still, I was definitely really nervous for the first episode because, you know, I wanted people to still feel like, okay, this feels like RWBY. You know, hopefully it feels, you know, like, we always want to improve. Hopefully it feels even better. I never expected, and I don't think he would have ever expected, us to make the exact same show. Like, we were not trying to replace Monty. We can't. What we can do is be a show that was started by and continued on with people who were inspired by him and that learned from him and learned from his knowledge and learned from his experiences and learned from his spirit.
He may not be here with us physically anymore, but there's, you know, nothing that happens in this department, not a day goes by that still doesn't have some aspect of his impact living on.
We'd already gotten a lot of input from Monty in terms of, like, where he wanted this volume to go. So we were able to use that to, you know, influence the scripts and try and keep it in this direction where, you know, all the moments we're trying to preserve as much as possible.
Oh. Yeah.
This, as much as I hate to say it, was only the beginning.
Yeah. We've had a lot more than
Yes.
planned out for a very long time. There's a lot more to come.
Oh, there you go.
There's going to be a lot more adventure, a lot more heartache, a lot more triumphs.
You know, it's bittersweet because you have to look back in the last 3 years like you would your own...
Sorry, I know I'm pausing at a moment that's literally just not far from the end of the video, but I find it interesting here. I thought, was it here?
For a very long time. There's
Yeah. Hold on, wait. It was about here-ish.
Yeah. We've had a lot more than just these 3 volumes planned out for a very long time. There's a lot more to come. There's going to
So
be
that's the
a lot
hint,
more
basically,
adventure, a lot more heartache. A lot
that
more
yes,
You know, it's bittersweet.
there was an
because
idea
you
possibly
have
of
to
where
look
the
back
story
in the
was
last 3
going
years like you would your own
in later
adolescence.
volumes at this
You may not
stage.
necessarily want to leave it, but ultimately you do not have a choice, and you are going to get thrown out of the nest and into the bigger world. And I feel sad for these characters, for what they're being put through right now, but I'm so excited to see where they go and to see the people that they're going to become.
The world of Remnant is a very big place, so it won't be short on stories.
Yeah, I definitely have a few thoughts. Because obviously, yeah, so they made the hint there about how, obviously, they had more in terms of the story planned out for subsequent volumes at this stage. Because there's always been that sort of debate, you know, that sort of those arguments in the fandom about how, you know, ever since the death of Monty, did RWBY sort of effectively squander what he wanted it to be and things like that, and people have always gone back and forth on that, but it's like, we don't know, okay? And what Rooster Teeth have told us is that Monty did leave a lot of detail about, well, not necessarily complete detail, but, you know, in broad strokes where he wanted elements of the story and things like that to go. So, you know, I do sometimes find it quite distasteful when people online do sit there and go, oh, this was not Monty's vision. And it's like, how do you know? Sorry, are you connected with Rooster Teeth? Do you have some insider information? Did you know this guy back in the day? It's just, it seems, I always just found it a bit distasteful, to put it that way. And it's like, well, you know, these people worked with Monty. They probably are positioned to know more than anyone else what he would have wanted the show to be. And it's like they say, like, Monty's gone. He died, okay? You know, and at the end of the day, you know, he's not the only person working on this show. So, there, yeah. Alright, I didn't mean for it to get as serious as that for a moment. Okay, let's have a look at this RWBY photos thing. So, let me just put the sound back up. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, that was only a minute. Art department. Hello. Camera and layout. Okay, so yeah, this is just giving you a sense of who's who, in essence. Animation. So far it has the bulk of, well, most people. 2D. I know it's obviously kind of sad because, obviously with Rooster Teeth, you know, Rooster Teeth as a company has had controversies over the years with, I think, because several years from now, I can't remember during which volume it was during. It might have been actually, obviously in the run-up to like volume 6 and 7 potentially, but I mean, granted, I don't know a lot here. I'm sure people in the comments can let me know. But of course, obviously, there was controversy with, you know, higher management in Rooster Teeth sometimes making certain decisions. And I know that at times in Rooster Teeth's history, there were times, for example, when certain members of staff had to be laid off, things like that. And I don't think that was necessarily because of any decisions connected with Team RWBY, but it was decisions, I think, connected to other franchises. Because I know that, was it Genlock or Genlock, whatever it was called? I know that had sort of a checkered reception and didn't entirely go well, from what I have heard. I'm sure people in the comments can probably tell me things about that. So I know that sometime, you know, certain times in Rooster Teeth's history, people in the animation department had to be let go and things like that. And so it is sad, you know, because obviously, you know, the company went through a lot of problems over the years. And then, of course, in the 2020s, COVID hit. And that obviously had an impact on production of Volume 8, I think. So, yeah. I mean, it's sad. Because I know, and I bring that up because obviously looking at those photos, there'll be people, faces in there who, you know, were not around for the entirety of RWBY. Some of them eventually left and all that. Sometimes not under entirely happy circumstances. But, yeah. Alright, well, that's the extras. Let's just go back to the main menu. Let's go to the trailers now. And let's just have a look at these, because these probably aren't going to be long and all that. So, Grim Eclipse, Laser Team, Crunch Time. Let's have a little look at what we got. Let's just play all of them, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just get the sound back up to maximum. Oh, 125%. Play all, 3, 2, 1, go. Show me Grim Eclipse, please. So this is what I want to do on my other channel at some point. I mean, it mostly has positive reviews, this game, so sure. That's why I want to play it, you know? I mean, graphically it looks fine, it looks fun, so sure. Like I say though, if I was to play it, I mean, I could play it single player, because I think you can do it on your own, but it would be awesome if I could get a couple of friends, see if they've got their, you know, they've got copies of this game, and potentially, I don't know, do a bit of co-op. So it's basically like a hack and slash sort of game, MOBA-like character leveling. I'll be honest, I've never played a MOBA game before, but, well, I mean, I guess it's one of those games of, you know, mash the buttons in certain orders in combos to pull off certain moves. I guess that's what kind of game it basically is. And I know there's also RWBY Arrowfell, which is purely single player. Need to play that at some point, but I think I'd want to play Grim Eclipse first. Well, there you go, yeah.
Was awesome!
RWBYGame.com, is that website still up? So this is Laser Team. Okay, this definitely doesn't look like a RWBY related thing. What the hell is this?
Signal was received. It is the only recorded incident of alien contact.
I mean, I saw a tape then that said Roswell, but
The
sure.
source of the transmission has never been revealed.
The fuck?
Until now.
Okay, right. Sure, we'll include this in the video, why
That was
not?
another spaceship that fell out of the sky, dumbass.
It's Michael, Son's voice actor.
What else they got in there? There's a trigger in here, but it doesn't do anything.
I recognise a few Rooster Teeth individuals in here.
Conflict is coming, but we need your help.
I think it gave me amnesia.
Anesthesia.
Shut up, dude. Y'all stupid. I'm out of here. You expect me to train these idiots?
Get the hell out of here, man. I know what I'm doing. Let's crank this baby up to 100.
Next.
The repulsor defensive gauntlet produces an
Okay.
energy shield.
Yeah, I just have a quick question before we begin. How exactly...
So it's a slapstick
Your
comedy.
uniforms. They are not anti-flammable.
They are flammable.
They will not retard flames.
Are you expecting us to catch on fire?
Oh!
This alien is gonna be here in 2 days. If we're not there to fight it, who's gonna be? Are you with me? Hell no!
Yeah, it looks very slapstick comedy. So obviously this has been out for a while, whatever this is. Laser Time.
If anything comes at you,
Was this popular?
I will block it.
Did people enjoy it?
Why the hell are we laser team anyway? Because I have a laser. Yeah, but the rest of us don't, right? You're the team part.
Nobody cares about your stupid name.
Yes, thank you for scratching your crotch there, Gavin. Yeah, there you go. So
Helmet heightens all mental functions and other visual enhancements.
Guys,
That was your problem.
Oh, God. I wish I was dead.
yes, there you go. All right. Well, yeah. Fuck it. We'll include those in the video, even though they're not anything to do with RWBY. Sure. All right. Let's take a jump cut here, and we'll have some concluding thoughts in a moment. 1 second, everybody. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah. Those two final trailers aside, you know, the rest of that was obviously all pretty damn interesting to actually watch. And, you know, I've already kind of actually talked about a lot of the key points, really, when I was pausing throughout that. But, you know, that first video in particular, the Legacy of RWBY one, I had a feeling that was going to be the real sort of main part of this video. And I'll sort of come back to what I was talking about, you know, that sort of argument that sometimes I've seen within the fandom about, you know, Monty's vision for the show and to what extent did the RWBY team after his death, you know, to what extent were they able to deliver on that. And like I say, I always find those arguments that people have online kind of distasteful, because it's like, you know, people talk about Monty's vision as though they know what he wanted for this show, but like I always say, you know, 2 points to that. One being that, number one, you know, how do you know? Because you're just a rando on the internet. How do you know what Monty wanted? You're just basing it on the same sources as the rest of us, which is, you know, production diaries and other footage and things that we have seen online from what, you know, Monty Ohm left behind. And the other aspect of it, of course, is that, you know, as blunt as this is to say, he's dead. Right, okay, he's not there anymore. I know that sounds really harsh, but he's dead. You know, let him be. Just, you know, at the end of the day, the RWBY team who make it, they need to obviously try their best with what's been left behind. And Monty Ohm, you know, won't have left behind details on every last little thing that he wanted to see in RWBY as it unfolded. So, you know, to some extent they have to kind of fill in the blanks themselves a bit, probably. And at the end of the day, you know, I think what we did get in subsequent volumes after Monty Oum's passing is still good. And, you know, I say that as someone who still enjoyed it for all, you know, for all of Rooster Teeth's missteps that they have had over the years. I still think that Team RWBY have delivered something that is very enjoyable, has a lot of heart and soul put into it, even if it does have the occasional writing misstep or whatever. So, you know, I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from, right? When I say those things about why I find sometimes those arguments about, you know, what Monty Oum's vision for the show was and whether Team RWBY are actually upholding it and all that. That's why I find them slightly distasteful, because I feel like it's a whole lot of people sometimes from what, you know, in one quarter of the fandom who are sort of like talking as though they know what Monty Oum would have wanted, as though they knew the guy, and it's like, you don't. You're just a rando on the internet. What are you talking about? Where are you getting this information? So, you know, that is my honest opinion of that. I'm not saying that, you know, Rooster Teeth is beyond criticism or anything. Like I've acknowledged, there have been moments throughout the years where the writing team maybe have made little missteps here and there, things that really they should have done, which they didn't do. And yeah, that is a valid and legit criticism at times to make about them. But, you know, I think having an argument about they're betraying Monty's vision or whatever is such. I'm like, how? How do you know? What are you basing any of that upon? And so I'm like, you know, if you're going to argue that, you better produce some pretty compelling and extraordinary evidence for it. So yeah, but you know what? I'm not going to get too much into that now. I've outlined my thoughts on that matter. What else? So yeah, like I say, I mean, it's just really a reiteration of the points that I actually made as I was reacting to that Legacy of RWBY video. There's a lot of interesting sort of behind the scenes there in terms of how the production on Volume 3 really sort of differed to production of Volumes 1 and 2. The main change being that by Volume 3, the animation team, the production staff was very much expanding, it was getting bigger. It meant that certain individuals in the team could have a bit of the pressure taken off them in terms of some of their responsibilities being devolved to someone else, which is always kind of a good thing, you know, take the heat off certain individuals and all that. And I think, you know, overall, that de-stressing, to put it that way, I think shows, because, you know, Volume 3 overall of RWBY is really, really good, and you can definitely see the improvement in animation quality overall. You know, granted, obviously with Volume 4, you know, Rooster Teeth were going to switch over to Maya from Poser and all that. So you can definitely see that step up in quality. And, you know, when you look back on my reaction, my non-blind retrospective Let's Watch of Volume 3, you can definitely see that uptick in the overall animation quality, I think, just by how, compared to Volumes 1 and 2, there were fewer instances there where I was sort of pausing and pointing out, you know, like little oddities in the visuals, or little sort of aspects of ropey animation and things like that. Because, like I say, the only one I actually remember now is that one with Ruby and Mercury in the corridor and the weird sort of positioning of the characters from time to time. But yeah, I mean, other than that, if there were any other aspects of animation ropiness in Volume 3, I genuinely have forgotten what they were. They must have been that minor and all that. Well, I suppose actually no, the other one was in some of the subsequent chapters how, you know, certain characters are sort of standing around a bit, particularly characters with rage weapons, when actually they should probably be sort of moving or in cover. I guess you could say that's a bit of animation ropiness. Though is it really animation that, or what would you call that, or is that sort of more to do with like positioning in frame? I don't know what the technical term is that I'm looking for here, because, you know, I'm not an animator, I'm not involved, I've never been an animator, I've never been involved with any sort of media production and all that, so, you know, I don't know what the exact technical term is for it, but I'm sure someone in the comments probably could say. Mise en scene, is that it? That's the term, isn't it? Is it mise en scene? Because I remember in Volume 2 I made a comment on the scene where Ozpin makes his speech just before Team RWBY go off to Mountain Glen, and I was talking about how, you know, the camera work of like focusing on certain characters' expressions and faces, and someone in the comments actually said that's called mise en scene or whatever it is. But is it mise en scene? Is that what I'm thinking of here? It might be. I'm sure people can correct me in the comments if I've got that wrong. But yeah, so there's that other bit of like people standing around with, rather than being in cover during combat sequences and all that. Which, yeah, I guess that's another minor criticism one could make. But yeah, I mean, compared to other volumes, RWBY Volume 3, you can definitely see the upgrade in quality from Volumes 1 and 2 in terms of visuals, animation, and all that. So, I would say Rooster Teeth's work back in the day when they were working on Volume 3 definitely paid off. And yeah, it was also interesting, watching that Legacy of RWBY video when they mentioned how they originally aired the first episode of RWBY back at one of the early RTXs, and they were never sure, how it would go down with the audience. So it was great to sort of see out of that how the audience reaction was very positive to it. People were there for it. They wanted to see what it was. Because it's interesting, because that shot that we saw of that one cosplayer who was sat in the audience and who looked like they were dressed as Yang, I imagine, was it the case that even before the first volume of RWBY had aired, people were already cosplaying the character designs? Because obviously, in the run-up to Volume 1 first being aired, obviously, Rooster Teeth will have marketed this new franchise that they were producing. They would have shown scenes of the characters, images, stills, promo posters, that kind of thing. So I imagine, that obviously will have generated a bit of interest a bit of interest among the cosplay community. So yeah, I guess even before RWBY had aired, people were already cosplaying the characters, which is great, because it generates that publicity and it generates that attention that, as a production company, you really want to generate that kind of publicity. Well, yeah, like I say, cosplays, there's definitely something I'd love to do a video on related to RWBY and all that. On a non-RWBY related note, cosplay is something that I've found as I get older, I feel like I am more and more interested in. When I was younger, I don't think I really had any awareness of it, but it's certainly, as I've got into my 30s, I definitely feel like cosplay is something that, I don't know if I'd necessarily do it myself, maybe I would, who knows, but it's definitely something that I found more and more interesting from certainly the standpoint of obviously like looking at the costumes that people create and the amount of effort and attention to detail that some cosplayers really put into the things they make, and the amount of craftsmanship and effort that goes into them is, it's astounding to me, and that's why I find it quite fascinating, because, cosplayers, those who really do it for a living and who really put in so much effort, they are artists, they are, they're craftspeople, and so, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I would love to do a RWBY cosplays video, looking at, people's cosplays that people have made, and just looking at the amount of detail and attention that's gone into them. That would be really fascinating and all that. So, yeah, I definitely want to do that. That's definitely something to add to the list of RWBY-related content that I'd love to do here on the channel. So that would be a different kind of reaction. That would be more of a blind reaction, since I've never really looked at RWBY cosplays before, but sure, yeah. I think, I sometimes wonder though, if I was to actually get into cosplay myself, what would I cosplay? I don't know. Do you think I could pull off a Roman Torchwick? I've got the right hair colour, right? Yeah, I could probably do a Roman Torchwick or something if I got my hands on, like the bowler hat and like a long white coat or something like that. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that's a challenge for me to do at some point. Maybe I should do that in 2026. Propagandist does his own Roman Torchwick cosplay or something. But thing is though, if you were making a proper sort of Roman Torchwick cosplay and all that, I need to actually get my hands on actual clothing, garments that actually look vaguely like the character. I know with some popular characters and things like that, you can actually get pre-made cosplays on places like Amazon. But would I get a pre-made one, or would I actually try and make one myself? I mean, it depends what would be more affordable, actually, because, I know pre-made cosplays sometimes can be slightly more expensive, unless you're getting a cheap one. But then again, if you're getting a cheap one, that means the quality of it probably won't be very good. The materials might be a bit naff. But, yeah, it depends, on if you were to try and get pieces yourself, buy them yourself, would that be cheaper not cheaper, but more affordable overall? I don't know, and all that. But yeah, it'd be the bowl hat that I think would be an interesting one, trying to get my hands on. But yeah, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, ladies and gentlemen. But there's a part of me that's tempted to put it that way. Then again, though, I feel like I produced a cosplay, but then what would I do with it? I feel like if you're going to make a cosplay, you know, you wouldn't just want to produce it for like a one-off video on your channel or something. You'd want to actually get more use out of it and go to cons in it or something like that. But yeah, well, who knows? Yeah, sorry, that's a tangent about cosplay and all that, ladies and gentlemen. But you know, I'm sure it'd be interesting. I'm sure people would be like, "Oh, Propagandist, you have the right hair colour. You should totally do a Roman Torchwick cosplay and all that." I don't know. I'm sure people are going to comment on that now that I've raised that down in the video. People are probably going to comment on it down below and all. But yeah, so what else? You know, I've already mentioned obviously during the RWBY photos reaction there that yeah, it's kind of sad because probably some of those faces who you saw in there probably eventually moved on or had to be let go during, you know, those periods in Rooster Teeth's history where it went into, you know, it ran into more difficulties and that kind of thing. But then, you know, RWBY Grim Eclipse, the trailer for that, I think it just really goes to reinforce what I already have known. I want to play that game at some time on my strategist channel. Knowing me, I will keep saying that, and it'll be months and months before I actually do so. So who knows? I need to ask my friend Connor, who I know through my friend Phil over on my strategist channel. I need to see, has he got RWBY Grim Eclipse, and would he be willing to, I don't know, do a collab let's play of it with me over on my strategist channel. But yeah, if and when I do it over on there, I will be sure to post an announcement, maybe even a video announcement here on Propagandist, just to say, for all you folks on here who watch my RWBY content, you know, I'll let you know if and when I'm playing Grim Eclipse and Arrowfell and all that over on my other channel, so that you can go over there and watch it if you're interested and all that. So yeah, like I say, my friend Phil, who I do collab videos with over on my strategist sometimes, you know, and we need to get him back on Steam. And if he ever, you know, gets himself back on Steam, he's someone else who I should, you know, say, get RWBY Grim Eclipse. And so that way it could be me, it could be Connor, it could be him. That way we'd have at least 3 players doing it. And who knows, maybe even someone Connor knows could join, because I know he has a girlfriend who sometimes plays video games, including multiplayer stuff. I wonder if she'd be interested in joining us. I shouldn't really say these things on camera because I feel like then I'm sort of putting pressure on them to actually do it, you know, do that thing with me. But, you know, it's just a possibility and all that. I make no guarantees, but that's what I would ideally love to see if I can get that to happen. But who knows? Right, well, yeah. And those other 2 random trailers, Laser Team and Crunch Time, they were what they were. I'm just throwing them in, because why the hell not? They're not RWBY specific, but yeah. Obviously, by the time you know, I do these reactions to RWBY Volume 3, these retrospectives, obviously those Laser Team and Crunch Time, they will have been out for however many years. Let me know in the comments, how did they go down, ladies and gentlemen? Did people enjoy those? I don't know, because I know nothing about them. I hadn't even heard of them until I noticed them on this Volume 3 RWBY DVD, that they were in the supplementary material extras menu. So yeah, I'm sure, you know, people have thoughts on those. Alright, well, in that case, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll wrap this video up here because it's nearly lunchtime and I'm getting slightly hungry. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that, folks. And, you know, as always, please do keep your comments coming down below. I'm sure people have thoughts coming out of what we've seen there, particularly in that Legacy of RWBY video. In the meantime, of course, the usual outro spiel. I've already mentioned, obviously, my strategist channel where I do lots of gaming content. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, there's a link to it in the video description as always. And I hope you'll join me next time, where I'll have a look, like I said earlier, just to see if there's any other supplementary material to watch before I get into Volume 4. We'll see. But if not, then we'll get into Volume 4 itself next time, ladies and gentlemen. So, I hope you're all looking forward to that. I certainly am. I have thoughts going into Volume 4 that I'll outline before I really sort of get into it. But that's for next time, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye, and see you then.